Talktainment Radio Worldwide Sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio, and now you are in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. If you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. And your questions will go into rotation, and first one comes up. That's what we will do. So Mr. Fuller is the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, and he will be discussing more about that book and how you can obtain it at the 45-minute mark of each hour. We are on for 2 hours every Wednesday from 9 until 11 Eastern Time. So tune it up. Okay, Mr. Fuller is live from Washington, D.C., so let's kick it off. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, all right, great connection there. Okay, let's do this here. Let's start off with a Gmail. This comes from Peter Shivers out of New York, and he said, Mr. Fuller, I really enjoy the program, and I am a supporter along with a contributor. And I say to you to keep up with the good work. My email, Mr. Fuller, is in regards to a subject a caller spoke about on a week's program relating to the FBI's U/FOU suspects intelligence assessment. Let's see. He says, this recently published document calling certain non-white individuals black identity extremists is very, very alarming and should be considered as an attack on our freedoms, our liberties, our rights to free speech, and our right to stay woke. This FBI document is proof that the COINTELPRO campaign is still alive and well, and is meant to thwart any efforts to utilize a compensatory code or any community empowerment whatsoever. When you get a chance, Mr. Fuller, please take a look at the links that I have included, which I'm not going to, give out over the air, with more detail of the new FBI BIE. Plus, I've also included the old National Security Council Memorandum 46 for comparison. Mr. Fuller, this is something I'm sure that you will be interested in discussing in a future compensatory concept broadcast under the 9th area called War and Counter War. So when I looked this up, Mr. Fuller, I found out that first information was for official use only, which is something that I guess the officials use. I don't know a whole lot about that. And also SBU, sensitive but unclassified stuff that I suppose that what this gentleman is suggesting that they are doing. Do you know anything about this, or what say you concerning the code, any efforts to prevent the compensatory concept from from going forward?
I don't know anything about that. I mean, I just address what racists are doing. Now, when you start talking about, people who investigate things, I try to investigate things. Everybody should try to investigate what's going on. What does the word investigate mean? It means finding out what is going on and why. And try to separate everything into constructive and non-constructive activity, because everything is. Everything is either constructive or non-constructive. So the whole compensatory concept, as far as what I concentrate on, without getting into the alphabet soup of, whether we're talking about investigators that call themselves the FBI or any other people who investigate, and, teachers investigate, politicians investigate, a person investigates who's just walking around the neighborhood, trying to pick out a house. They're investigating. So it comes down to what are you investigating for? What's your objective? The objective of the compensatory concept, as it says on the front of the book, is ending racism and producing a product in its place that's never been produced by anybody in recorded history, and that's a product called justice. It's something that has to be achieved, has to be sorted out. What is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. So anybody who's on that page is supposed to be endorsed or supported, and that's it. It's real simple. If people are doing things what they call undercover and all like that, that's okay. It depends on what the objective is. What are you doing it for? Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to produce a product called justice and trying to eliminate racism, no problem there. I've always said I have no problem, and no one should have any problem with anybody anywhere on the planet any minute of the day who is trying to end the system of white supremacy, which is racism, and replace it with a quality system, a better quality system, called the system of justice, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help in every area of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, war, counter-war, all of the areas of activity. Anybody who needs help, constructive help,
yes, sir,
in any of those activities should get it.
Okay.
That's it. Keep it simple.
All righty. I think you failed to mention sex, but that's okay because we are on the eighth area of people activity, sex. That's what the program is going to be about, and we are going to be on this for a long time. Today, let's start on page 308 of the revised expanded edition. And at the very top of the page, Mr. Fuller, you wrote, people who engage in sexual intercourse and or serious sexual play with each other should never be strangers to one another. Each person should know as much about the other person as he or she knows about himself or herself, and maybe more. Now, you went into some explanations on that, and could you go over a few of those that you have written? This is on page 308.
Well, people who are in bed having sexual intercourse, that's about as close as people can get. If you mean whatever you mean by close. People are close in all areas of activity: economics, education, exchanging ideas, which is what education is, about getting things done. And so sexual intercourse and or sexual play, that's pretty close. So if you're engaging in something that close, you should know everything that there is to know about the person that you're having sexual intercourse with. It just makes everything more convenient. And also, it minimizes something that you'd never want in any interaction between people in any area of activity, and that is conflict. The more you know and understand about anything, the less conflict you have, or the easier it is to resolve any conflict that is there. Understanding.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old saying, out of all thy getting, get what? Understanding. So people who are having sexual intercourse and are engaging in sexual play should have a full understanding of each other and a full knowledge of each other. The more they know and understand about each other, the better. That's the theory.
Yes.
I think it's been proven down through history.
Okay. Now, on page 308 of the Revised Expanded Edition, you wrote under explanation these key words. You said, I don't know, are words spoken too many times in regards to the sexual arrangements that involve non-white people, particularly with each other. Then you went through about 5 or 6 that I don't knows. Could you explain that?
Well, it says here, the explanation for that, like I said, the more you know and understand about the person. So the words I didn't know are words spoken too many times in regards to the sexual arrangements that involve non-white people, particularly with each other. I didn't know you were married. I didn't know you had other children. I didn't know you were in prison before. I didn't know that you didn't have a job. I wish I knew. If I had known. I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. And then comes after that the name calling and the cursing and the crying and the threats and the assaults. We look in the newspapers every day. You'll find it there. Killing. Based on what? I didn't know. I didn't know you spend money like that. If I had known that, I didn't know that you, would spend all the rent money, all of the house note money at the races. You never told me that. Why didn't you tell me you had a gambling habit? I didn't know that. Well, this was never asked. See, the more questions you ask before bedtime for the first time, the better everything gets. Because you might decide, if you get enough questions and enough answers, that maybe you're a mismatch. Because a person might say, well, hey, I spend $10,000 a year at the gaming tables, and I always lose, but I have high hopes. Well, if you're going to get seriously involved with that person, you just might want to know that. Because that might be a problem somewhere down the road, if not immediately. And you just might not want to be involved with that person. And so no hard feelings or nothing like that, but you just say, well, I don't think we're going to be, I don't think we're going to, I don't think this is going to work out. I really don't. So we'll just have breakfast together and whatnot, and maybe even again, and again, and again. But it's just having breakfast together because we happen to be in the same restaurant at the same time. But as far as any sexual activity or anything like that, I don't think we need to go that far, because that might get, we might get too close to each other and it'd be too far down the road. And that $10,000 a year that you're talking about may become a problem. See what I mean? But you know all of this. See, I'm just throwing these things out because these are practical things. Mm-hmm. Everything in codification is about what people actually do. You're not talking in riddles or in circles.
Right.
Everything is about knowledge and understanding about the entire world that you're in, and knowing what is going on around you, what people do and what people don't do,
mm-hmm.
and when and where. Knowledge is power. Understanding is power. You want this about everything. That's what compensatory codification is all about.
Okay. 1-877-932-9766 is the number you can call, or the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com is how you can get in contact with the show. TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, politics. And here's a couple that I'd like to share with you. Many of you have already heard them, but they are the shows that we have. One of them is called Super Cool with Kahari Inaharo. You can check that out. All in the Family with S. Yolanda Robinson is another one of the shows. And It's Your Time to Travel with Ricky Tyus. Give you all the information on travel. Now, these shows are exclusive to TalkTameRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTameRadio.com homepage, click on programs for the scheduled times, and a little bit about the show host and any information that you deem pertinent for your listening pleasure. All this from TalkTameRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is live from Washington, D.C. We are on the 8th area of people activity, which is sex. This is the 9th installment of this program. The way that it's going, it seems like this program will go all the way into at least May of 2018. But have your calls and comments ready, and we will do what we have to do here. Let's see here. Let's go to the Gmails. Mr. Fuller, this comes from Jane L. She says, recently, Mr. Fuller, I've noticed in television, print, and internet advertisements an increase in black women with white spouses or love interests. Mr. Fuller, why do you think the folks controlling the media are doing this? Are they trying to encourage black women to date, marry white men? JL.
The answer is, to the extent, this is the codified answer, to the extent that a white supremacist has anything to do with this, either directly or indirectly, any white person who believes in white supremacy, who has anything to do with this, directly or indirectly, then the white supremacists collectively are to blame. And it is, and when you say blame, because there is a blame here, because they don't do anything that's not going to add power to the system of white supremacy. So regardless of how it looks on the surface, if a white supremacist has anything to do with it, even directly or indirectly, remotely, if they're approving of it, or if they're putting any kind of, if anybody in that crowd is a white supremacist who has some influence on making this happen, look out, because there's a plan here. See, the white supremacists are very deceptive, and they know how to make something look like it's one thing when it's really something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so the white supremacists now, at one time, they appeared, they said, hey, Emmett Till, if you whistle at a white woman, or, wow, I mean, the whole town, I mean, everybody in the world, my goodness, you're a black person, and you are showing some type of tendency to be attracted sexually or something? I mean, either, or hinting at it, even if you're 10 years old and you're just fooling around. I mean, you're just kidding around. I mean, no, that's a death sentence.
Wow. That is incredible. That is incredible. All right, let's go here. Let's go to page 309, Mr. Fuller. In particular, to
et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So many white supremacists start saying, hey, let's make a reassessment here about our strategy for keeping our strength. Okay? And we'll do that by upping the ante, you might say, on the field of deception. So what we'll do, we'll put out a huge number of people, showcase them, black people and white people together, who seems like everything is all la-di-da, and this is Shangri-La land, this is Oz and whatnot, and we will showcase them. That's what you call racial showcasing.
Okay.
So they started doing a lot of that. That's why you see it in advertising. You see a lot of it. You're going to see more and more of it because they're giving the illusion. That's what it's really all about, because they have a limit to this. It's a percentage. They're not going all out for this, saying, hey, boy meets girl. I mean, hey, just go for it, regardless of what color you are and all like that. No, they're controlling it. They are in absolute control of it.
Yes, sir.
See, black people do not control sexual intercourse with white people in a system of white supremacy. That does not happen anywhere, even when it looks like it's happening, when you have the so-called black pimp.
So then why are they doing it then, as she is asking then?
Oh, deception.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Then what would be the purpose of that deception?
The white supremacists are the greatest political magicians that the world has ever produced. They know how to make something look like it's one thing when it's something else altogether.
Okay.
And they're doing this in all of the areas of activity.
Yes, sir.
They're increasing the deception in economics and everything. And in the sexual area, they are going all out. That's why you have all of these different types of categories now, sexuality.
Yes, sir.
And they're going to add to them. They'll start out with one or two, and then they'll add about 3 or 4 more, and then they'll add about 12 more. And here in the textbook for victims of white supremacy, I have even projected possible names that they will come up with that runs into the dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of sexuality. It used to be this male-female. That was what was considered sex.
Right.
But the white supremacists now, because of a white supremacist agenda, is now saying, oh, no, sex is just not restricted to what we call male and female. How did anybody get that archaic idea? Oh, no, sex can be almost, a number of things, a variety of things, depending on what your perspective is. Or what is sex anyway? Is sex really sex? Or is sex really a combination of many other factors? Factors like what? Well, who knows? We can find out. See? And so you cause what?
Confusion.
Confusion. The key reason for anybody being deceptive is to cause confusion. And when anybody does deception deliberately, to cause confusion deliberately, is because they have an agenda that has to do with power. Anytime you're trying to confuse somebody, you're trying to get you're trying to get power over the person or consolidate power over the person that you are confusing. Because a confused person has to submit to someone who is not confused. That's a mathematical fact. That's the way that works. The white supremacists understand that. So keep the non-white people of this planet confused in every area of activity 24/7, and you will always have power over them. Don't let them confuse you. You always keep them confused. You dictate what the criteria is for everything. And you do it and get them, you do it in such a way, you can, if you're really skilled at it, you can make them think something that they are doing that is working against them is their idea. If you're arch deceiver, which the white supremacists are the best in the world, and so they can come up with things themselves burning midnight oil while black people are asleep, and then present it to black people in the morning, and by noon, the black people would think that they're the ones that came up with the idea.
Okay. So let me...
White supremacists are just that polished.
Okay.
Are you talking about a smooth operators?
Okay.
They are, wow.
Wow.
I mean,
so
really, if you stop and think, they are the smartest people on this planet.
Okay.
That hurts black people's feelings.
Yeah,
I say that.
Yeah, it really
does. This is not about feelings.
It really...
This is not about feelings. This is not about feelings. This is about the truth. Because somebody once said the truth is the only thing that will do what? Make you free, or make you interested in justice, or make you interested in anything of constructive value. In order to progress, you first have to know that you don't know what you need to know. That's intelligence. That's the first signs of intelligence. Knowing that you need to know and understand something, and knowing that you don't know and understand what you need to know and understand. That's the first signs of intelligence, even for an ant. Just don't assume that because you're here on the planet, you're automatically smart. You have to get smart. The white supremacists understand that, but they have brainwashed many black people into thinking that they are smart already. They don't need to learn nothing. And that has been a huge impediment to black people doing anything of constructive value.
So they allow this illusion, as you alluded to be presented so that they can control it.
It's called racial showcasing.
Okay.
Put all the black people down, but limit what they're doing now. See, this is going to be limited. This black-white in-bed thing, sexual intercourse, and so-called intermarriage and all like that, they're going to control that. They already control that. They're going to keep control of it. They're not going to let that get out of their control. They let that get out of their control, they know that they're out of business. So black people will have the illusion that, oh, this is everywhere, black and white together. I mean, everything is just wonderful. I mean, there's no more racism. Look at all of the black males who are strutting around with white women on their arms. I mean, you see it everywhere. No, when you look at it percentage-wise, it's very, 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 very little of that going on. It's just that the ones who you see stand out. The white supremacists know that. They're the greatest advertisers in the world. They know all about advertising. They know how to con people into, buying rocks and calling it food. People be trying to eat rocks. But the white supremacists know how to propagandize that by advertising and say, oh, no, those are not rocks. That's food. There must be something wrong with your teeth. You can't eat it.
So in every area of people activity, which you've gone over the 9 areas before, this is their goal. They want to control everything, present illusions to make you think that things are peaceful when they're really not, because behind it, they are really in control of it.
You can't have malicious intent toward people and control them without confusing them.
Confusion. Okay, there we go again.
So how do you confuse people? Through illusion.
Okay.
Make things appear to be something that they're not. And they know how to do that. They're the greatest magicians that the world has ever seen. The white supremacists, racist man and racist woman.
Wow.
Nobody beats them at that.
Wow. That is deep. Nobody beats them. Let's do this right here. TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are now available, and all you have to do is download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. I need you to stay right there. When we come back, we're going to have more of your phone calls. We're going to have more of your Gmails and more of Mr. Fuller speaking on the subject in the 8th area of people activity, which is sex. All that and more coming up next on TalkTainmentRadio.com with Mr. Neely Fuller, and we are still in the 8th area of people activity, which is sex, but we will be answering Gmails, which do not necessarily have to be about sex. We will also take your phone calls at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com. That's Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And I will do my best to get it out as your question will go in rotation. Let's see here. Let's go to this one, Mr. Fuller. This is from Youngstown, Ohio. He says this, Mr. Fuller, you always talk about how we should never accuse a white person of being racist. But 2 weeks ago, Jamel Hill, who works for ESPN, was suspended for calling Donald Trump a white supremacist, then telling black players in the NFL to boycott league sponsors on her Twitter page. She's back on the air now and is standing by what she said about the president. So my question this morning to you, Mr. Fuller, is if she's been able to keep her job, has lots of public support for what she said, and didn't have to prove to anybody her accusation that he's a white supremacist, does your suggestion still hold weight when you tell us never to accuse a white person of being a racist?
Well, it's easier not to do that. I mean, why go through the process of calling? See, everything in counter-racist science is supposed to be the best possible thing to do or not do. So the basis for codification when it comes to naming is that you never call anyone a name or a title that the person doesn't want to be called. That's the easiest way. Now, you can go through, you can call a white person a racist, but you're going to have to get another white person to approve of you doing that in the system of white supremacy. And I'm absolutely certain that directly, indirectly, that is what happened in the case that's being cited just now, that some white person somewhere ruled that it was okay for this black person to call that other white person a racist. And that's why the person was reinstated. Now, this has to be true. Otherwise, it means the system of white supremacy doesn't exist. And everything that I've been saying all these years is predicated on the concept, on what I say is the truth, that the system of white supremacy not only exists, it is the most powerful political and religious force on the planet. It is the only real government on the planet. So this is either true or false. Everything that I'm saying on every one of these programs starts with that basic premise. The system of white supremacy is indeed supreme. It is the supreme government of all of the non-white people of this entire planet, 24/7, in all areas of activity. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a flat statement that's either true or false.
Or false, yes.
So therefore, getting back to what we were talking about, if I name call someone and the white supremacists disapprove of that name calling that I did, the white supremacists can punish me, and nobody is big enough and bad enough to overrule the white supremacists. Otherwise, white supremacy doesn't exist. It has to be another white person. Only a white person can overrule.
Okay.
Another white person when it comes to making a decision about non-white people. And that's been proven over and over again, not only in name calling, that's in jobs and everything else, everywhere on the planet.
Yes, sir.
All of the areas of activity, economics, education. Doesn't make any difference what black people say about how much education they demand and all like that. If the white supremacist said, you're not demanding nothing because you ain't got the muscle, and you don't know anybody who has, because I'm supreme over everything. All of you people, not some of you. All of you. And anything that I approve of against you people is going to stand until another white person overrules me as a white person. One white person overruling another. That's the way that has to work. Because white is supreme. Black is never supreme.
Never.
Ever. In anything. In an electoral process and all like that. Oh, no, that's still asking. All right? If I get to be the president, like we did have one.
Okay.
President Barack Obama had the title of president. But any move that he made had to be approved of by, either directly or indirectly, by the white supremacists. Why? Because white supremacy is the only government on the planet. There is no other government. There's no mysterious, invisible government somewhere other than that one. Now, that statement that I just made is either true or false.
Or false, right.
There's no in between.
So, in what is happening right now, I understand, and I did read the document, that there are 38 levels of secrecy above the president. Even the president doesn't know, or certain things he wasn't told. I'm not going to go into great detail about that, but I found that interesting. But even in the so-called 38 levels of secrecy above the president, it goes, I guess the highest one being the cosmic one, even that is still controlled by the white supremacists.
The white supremacists control all of the affairs of people who they classify as non-white on this planet called Earth. Period. In all 9 areas of activity. Absolute control, not partial control, not slipshod control, not control maybe on a Tuesday, but not exactly on a Wednesday. Oh, no. It's absolute. All of the time. Nothing happens that's going to go anywhere without their approval. That's why you have to replace the entire system. You can't peck away at it. You can't say, well, I'll move a few chairs around in the prison camp. Well, yeah, you can move a few chairs around in the prison camp, but you're still in the prison camp. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes,
you can have a trustee in the prison camp.
But you're still in the prison camp.
And that's what black people are at the highest level. We're trustees. You work in the warden's office like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption.
But you're still in the prison camp.
You're still a prisoner. And every now and then, some black people tend to forget that. And the white supremacists always let them know. Oh, just because you have that title, you got to remember, boy, I gave you that title.
So you can be president.
You don't have a title of your own.
So you could be the president, but you still in the prison camp.
You just have a title.
Okay.
You are beholden to me. Every move that you make has to be approved by me. And if you make one that's not approved by me, you will feel the sting from me. And they have proven this all over the world. All of the so-called presidents of African countries, these are not really countries. These are just titles that people have. The white supremacists will determine whether they eat or not. All right? Not to say anything about whether their people will have anything or not. The white supremacists determine whether or not they'll breathe. I mean, through the rest of this day. Pick any, non-white person on the planet and say what their title is and how much of a big army they have and all like that. And the white supremacist says, yeah, I don't care who he or she is. If they are classified as non-white, they can have a sudden heart attack and don't know how it happened. But I know how it happened because I did it. We know how to do things. We know how to eliminate people. I don't care how many guards they got. We control the air that people breathe. All right? Put that in your pipe and smoke it, boy. We control the air that you breathe, and we can cut that air off at any time. You don't believe it? Try us. Because a lot of you have tried thinking that you were ahead of something.
Mm-hmm.
That you are now out of my jurisdiction. Any black person anywhere on this planet that has a so-called big title knows who their boss is if they tell the truth. And that boss is always somebody classified as white.
Talk to him at
every black person on the planet.
Yes. Talk to him at radio.com. We go where you go, and you can download the Talk to him at radio.com to your app or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. I am Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. Our topic is about sex, and we will be on this topic until I'm figuring maybe May of 2018. It's the largest chapter in the book, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which in about a minute I'm going to have Mr. Fuller talk about the book. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, you can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, mrbobby@gmail.com, and your question will go into rotation and will be read at the appropriate time. Mr. Fuller, usually at the 45-minute mark, we go into the segment that we have set aside for the discussion of your book, the title of it, how we can get it, and any other pertinent information. So the floor is yours concerning your book.
Yes, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. And I'd just like to say this, that some people have gotten in touch with me, and they'll ask me questions that are right there in the book.
Mm-hmm. What does that mean when they do that?
Well, a lot of people buy the book and put it on the shelf.
Okay.
You know, but we're kind of speaker oriented, and we kind of got that back when we wasn't allowed to read and write and whatnot, but we were allowed to talk, and we were allowed to have some meetings, and we were allowed to go to church or something like that. That was usually, had to do with, in the Northwestern Hemisphere, the Christian church. And so plantation owners would allow us to do a little bit of that as long as they could control it. But they allow us to do a lot of talking, but not much reading, all right? Because they could keep track of what we were saying, but they couldn't keep track of what we were reading if we were reading without their authorization.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they would always have themselves, they would be present when black people would meet, or they would have other black people assigned to be present and report back to the big house what was said.
That's right.
So black people have we have a tendency to, we'll talk to each other, but we don't seek out information that is in print. So we got to get out of that, because a lot of information is in print. There's an old saying among black people themselves, and what is it? You probably heard it.
Yeah, if you want
to hide something from a black person, put it in a book.
Put it between the pages of a book. Yes,
because we have an aversion to books. But like I said, this is the best way that I can get it out, because I won't be here, And the book is supposed to be what you use as your basic vehicle for, getting your ideas. You just pick out what you want. It's addressed to each individual, but it's addressed in such a way that just because it's in the book doesn't say that that's true. That's just Neely Fuller's opinion. And if it's something that you think won't work for you, you don't pay any attention to it. You just bypass that and look and see if you can find another page that you can pay attention to. It seems to fit you and your circumstances, so you use that.
Yes, sir.
You don't use anything that doesn't make sense to you. Never give up your mind. And it says that in the book. To anybody, Neely Fuller or anybody else. Never give up the things that you deep down, you hear that voice saying something to you, because there's messages. And the book says this. There are messages that are sent to each and every individual on this planet. Some of these messages is reasonable to assume are not sent to anyone else. So your Creator sends you messages. There's nobody on the planet exactly like you. I don't care if they look like you. And people mistake you for being somebody else all the time. You have a twin, or you're triplets. You're not the same as your twin, if you're triplets, you're not the same as the other two. No, you are an individual person, and you receive individual messages from your Creator. So if you read anything written by anybody, I mean, it doesn't make sense to you. You can take it or leave it until it does make sense, or it doesn't make sense permanently, because maybe it doesn't make sense. Just because somebody puts it in a book doesn't say that that's the way to go. All right? Even though there are other things in that same book that is the way to go at a particular time. And so timing is another factor. Where you are, place, time, place. So something that is true in one place at one time may not be true in another place at another time, or at the same time in another place. So you take all this into consideration. Never give up your mind, your own mind, to anybody. All right? Listen to that little voice that keeps whispering to you. Wait a minute. Don't just grab hold of this. Take another look at it. It might be something that somebody else, that everybody else overlooked, that you can see. You may be the little boy, the little girl who saw that the emperor had no clothes, all right? So always take that in consideration. This is counter-racist science. And the book itself expresses this idea. That's why it's called a united independent system. You might be united with everybody else in the way that you want to go, but you are still an individual in the way that you get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be taken into consideration. You can get the basic book and the word guide, which is very helpful. It's just an extension of the basic book, by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is the method for ordering.
Yes, sir. Okay. All righty. We are speaking in the 8th area of people activity, which is sex. And we invite your questions, 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me today at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com, and then your question goes in rotation, and then I will have Mr. Fuller address it. It doesn't have to be about sex, but this is what we're concentrating on right now in the 8th area. Okay, Mr. Fuller, on page 311 of the revised expanded edition of the book that you just spoke about, in the middle of the page, you wrote this. It was a question. You wrote, does every person in the known universe have a so-called, and this is in quotations, serious sex problem, end of quote. Can you give an explanation on that?
Well, the explanation is right there. You said part of it yourself. Every person in the known universe is, at all times, either engaging in sexual intercourse and or sexual play, or he or she is directly or indirectly reacting to those who are so engaged. Either way, all such actions and reactions produce serious problems in one form or another. In addition, all of these problems collectively help to make the problem of replacing the system of white supremacy with the system of justice extremely difficult.
Okay.
Now,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Well, what that means is self-explanatory. That, and I always say this in a more casual fashion. No matter what your sexual involvement is, and everybody's involved in something sexual because you're either involved in it yourself or you're reacting to somebody who is.
Okay.
All of the time. But regardless of the sexual scenario, with any person on the planet, in an imperfect world, you can't get a sexual arrangement like it ought to be in the system of white supremacy, particularly, and we're all in the system of white supremacy. You can't get it the way that it ought to be. You might get it to your satisfaction, but it's still not going to be the way that it should be, simply because nothing is.
Nothing is. Okay.
No interaction between people nowhere on this planet is the way that it should be.
Okay.
Right.
Let me
universal man and universal woman in tune with all of the elements of the universe. We're supposed to be universal people. We're not.
Okay.
We are dominated under a racist world, and therefore the racists are not people who are the type of people that they ought to be, the white people who are racist. And the white people who are not racist aren't the way that they ought to be on account of the people who are racist, since they are the dominant force. And the non-white people of the planet are completely out of sync in every area of activity, and that includes what? Sex.
Sex.
So the people who are saying my relationship with my partner, I try to make it as the way that it ought to be, but it's some things I just can't stand about him or her or whatever the situation might be. And, I just wish that it wasn't like that and whatnot. Well, you can just keep wishing, because it's not going to be the way that it ought to be.
Okay.
And this is important to know, because disappointment comes from what? Expectation.
Expectation. Yes, sir.
So if you don't expect it to be perfect, then now you're on the page that you should be on.
Okay.
Because it's not going to be.
Okay.
I mean, people even in the Northwestern Hemisphere, among English-speaking people, many of the vows that are taken when people get what? Married, they say, for what? Sickness and in health, for better or for
worse.
Worse. Now that's anticipating right there. See what I mean? People have found out over the years that, hey, there are going to be times when things going, hey, this thing is not going to be working too well.
That's right.
I mean, hey, you're going to be dissatisfied about something. You might be dissatisfied about something every day.
Okay.
Large or small.
Large or small.
But this goes with the territory.
Okay. Ed, I'm going to take the call on the other side of the break. Okay. All right. So hang on, caller. TalkTainMenTRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thank you for listening. And we'll be back with the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. on radio the way it should be heard.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Okay, welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. We are in the 8th area of people activity, sex. So if you have your questions, you can call in at 1-877-932-9766 with your questions, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. Let's do this, Ed. We're going to go to the question right now. Okay, caller, we're going to have you on right now. Go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller. Go ahead. Okay, caller, you're on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I was having a few problems there, technical, getting the show this morning, but I'm glad it's back. But my question is dealing with power. Ms. Fuller, does a $20 an hour policeman have more power than a $40 million black athlete?
Police officer?
Pardon?
Did you say police officer?
Yes, sir.
Depends on whether or not the police officer has the racial classification as white or non-white.
Well, I was thinking in terms of
every white person in the system of white supremacy has white supremacist power, whether he or she wants it or not. It goes with the system. A white person born into the system of white supremacy has the power that goes with the system of white supremacy. If you're classified as white, there's a reason for that classification. See, if you stop and think about it, there's no reason for people to be classified by color. People have color, but people have, fingers, they have toes and whatnot. People don't go by your hand size or, how big your hands are, or, how the shape of your ears. That's not a factor in most things, all right? But somebody thought of the idea of doing all of the world's business on the basis of what color you are. Mm-hmm. And it's called racism. And it turned out to be the greatest and most powerful idea for manipulating people in a harmful way that was ever conceived in the minds of people in the form of something called white supremacy. So therefore, a white person, just by being white, is always supposed to have more power than anybody who is non-white, period. Regardless, the money doesn't make any difference in all of that. I mean, the white supremacists have power over money. Money doesn't make the white supremacists. The white supremacists don't go around chasing after money. The white supremacists have money because they are white. Being white is money. The white supremacists on this planet determine the value of everybody's money. You can be a black person and you can get a press and you can run some money off and you'll say, boy, that's some pretty money. That's the best looking money that was ever made. You look at the whole history of money, and this money that I printed this morning, and I'm a black person, is the prettiest money that you will ever see up to now. Because nobody's ever printed money that is as pretty as this money that I printed this morning. And it will be pretty. When people look at it, they'll say, oh, that's some pretty money. Oh, that's good-looking money. Oh, my goodness. I mean, that's money that you can just sit and look at You know, you never want to spend it because you want to hold on to it because it's so beautiful. Just look at the designs and look at that and look at this and whatnot. Oh, this is some great artwork. Oh, it's pretty, all right. But the white supremacists say, yeah, but what is it worth? It's not worth anything until I say that it's worth something. And every black person on this planet, including black people who say that they are the presidents of countries, knows that regardless of what money they print, it's not worth anything until the white supremacists say that it is. That's what white supremacy is about. So in answer to the question, a black athlete with millions of dollars and diamond rings on his or her fingers and all like that, big mansion, boats sailing, on the bay, and not only, have title to the boats, they have title to the bay that the boats are floating on. They got this kind of money. That's my bay, named after me. But the white supremacists can come along and say, hey, you don't have anything. And you know why you don't have anything? Because I have you. And whatever you have is mine.
Yes.
Your wife, your children, whatever you got is mine. I determine everything. And so you might say, well, an individual white person sleeping on a park bench, he ain't got nothing. Well, he ain't got nothing because other white supremacists decided he's not going to have nothing. But if they decide he's going to be president, that's what he's going to be. That's what white supremacy means. Because who can overrule the white supremacists? Who has done it? Not a non-white person on this planet has ever overruled a white supremacist in anything except momentarily, like in a robbery or something, a street robbery. All right. But then that non-white person has to take off running immediately after they rob that person. Why? Because they're afraid of being caught. Caught by whom? Caught by whom? Whom are they running from? The white supremacists. If you're black, you're always running from them when you did something that they didn't approve of. And you got to hide, and when you're caught, you got to have another white supremacist stand up for you if you're going to get any kind of consideration. Doesn't make any difference by you having a black lawyer. That black lawyer has to be approved by the white supremacists.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Listen, let me make this quick announcement now. To watch the live broadcast of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and yours truly, Mr. Bobby, is your co-host. Go to YouTube and then type in the word Talktainment, then hit the space bar and type in the word radio. Scroll down to Talktainment 2 Live on YouTube, and you can also hear us live at TalktainmentRadio.com. So please like us and subscribe on YouTube. Now let me make this announcement again. If you want to watch us, the live broadcast of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, go to YouTube and type in the word Talktainment. Then hit the space bar and type in the word radio. Scroll down to Talktainment 2 live on YouTube, and then you can also hear us live at TalktainmentRadio.com. Yes, that's for the problems that have been going on with the usual suspects doing what they do. But thank you, Dominic and JR, George, and all, and many people who have called in wondering what's going on. Our technicians have tried to work out the problems so we can go on with the show, and that's a good thing. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let me see here. Let me erase that one and go to this one here. We're speaking of, we have a call. I'm sorry. Thank you. Line 3, go ahead with your call for Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Master Teacher Fuller.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a question. Now, and this relates to sexual activity, but it was earlier in the book. Now, are the 3 activities you can do, are they constructive, non-constructive, and destructive? Because I read that in the book, and I just had that simple question.
Okay, hang on. Mr. Fuller?
No, everything is constructive or non-constructive because destructive is non-constructive. Okay?
Okay.
So you don't have to say destructive. Non-constructive is destructive. All right? Anytime you're doing anything that's non-constructive, that is destructive.
Okay.
That's destructuralizing whatever you had structured.
Yeah, yes.
Means something that's progressive, something that's going to help to do something that is going to be helpful. And, a lot of people say, what do you mean by constructive? Well, it's either breaking something down or building it up. I mean, if you say you work in construction. Well, sometimes we limit it. When we hear a person say that, we think about a person putting up some type of building and whatnot. But constructive activity is a teacher is constructive if he or she is doing what? Solving a problem. See, constructive activity is about solving a problem, actually solving a problem rather than making one.
Yes, sir.
Because every move that you make, each and every day, is either solving a problem or making one, whether you're aware of it or not. You're either solving a problem or you're making one, or you're helping one to stay in place, which is making one. So, people should look at the way that they use their time and energy, because all day long, you're either in the process of solving a problem or making one. So the whole idea is to solve problems without making any. And that is difficult to do, but it's not impossible.
Not impossible. All right. Thank you for your call, my brother. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening.
That's powerful.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay, here. Let's do this one right now. TalkTainmentradio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, there is politics. Now, here's a couple, let's say 3, that I will mention to you. How about this one? Wiggins World. Stacey Wiggins will rock it to you about healthy living and the good things to do concerning your body. So check that out. This is Libby. If you haven't heard that, get liberized. Man, she is a fantastic person, not because she works here and I know her, but she's good people and she gives out good holistic information that you would need. But check that out. And Everlasting Life with Michelle Vanel. All these are very good programs, and they are exclusive. That means Talktainment only has them. They are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage and then click on programs, and there they are, a list of them. Click on them bad boys and check us out. You can even check out this program, too, the podcast of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. All that is courtesy of TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. I am Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. And let me make this announcement again. To watch the live broadcast of the compensatory concept, go to YouTube and then type in the word Talktainment. Then hit the space bar and then type in the word radio. Scroll down to the Talktainment number 2, live on YouTube, and you can also hear us live at TalkTainmentRadio.com. While you're there, like us and subscribe on YouTube. How about that? You can do that too. And hear us live at TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. I don't know why you'd want to look at me, but they got it up so that you can. But mostly you can hear what Mr. Fuller has to say. Okay. Let's do this one here. I'm going to my Gmails, Mr. Fuller. Oh, okay. Yeah. I know what I can do. Here it is. Right here. Question here. Mr. Fuller, on page 319, the very last paragraph, you asked a question and you also gave the answer. But for those who don't have the book, this is the question here. It says, you say, ask this question, what is the only logical reason for a non-white male and non-white female to engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play during the existence of white supremacy, racism?
Well, what page is that on?
Page 311, at the very bottom.
Oh, 311.
Yes, sir. The very bottom of the page.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, okay.
I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Yeah, what is the only logical reason for a non-white male and non-white female to engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play?
Yes, sir.
During the existence of white supremacy? Oh, well, there are reasons for sexual intercourse, all right, and sexual play. But in the system of white supremacy, the answer is to help promote more powerful thought, speech, and action designed to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. That is the only logical reason for prisoners of war, prisoners of the system of racism, to have sexual intercourse and or sexual play with each other, or to do anything with each other in any area of activity. Why? Because everything for a prisoner of war, everything that a prisoner of war should be doing while he or she is a prisoner of war, and all non-white people in the system of white supremacy are prisoners of the white supremacists. We're prisoners of war. We have already been captured. We're not in the process of being captured. So every move that we make should be with the intention of replacing that system, that prison system. Not breaking out of it, because you can't break out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. And everything that you do individually, everything you think about, everything you plan on doing, everything you do with or without the company of each other, or if you're engaging in sex, you should have it in mind that this is a joint committee, you might say,
mm-hmm.
of two, all right, who is engaging in sex with the intention of having your mind set. You're helping each other, giving comfort to each other in doing what? Replacing the system of racism with the system of justice. Sexual intercourse can be comforting. So you're really comforting each other while you're in the process of what? Not just having sex, but with the intention of working with each other, and this is work and play, while you're thinking about or working on a project that has to do with replacing the system of racism, white supremacy, with the system of justice, making the world the type of place that it should have been among people in the first place. And this is what all activities should be about.
Yes, sir.
Sex is not excluded. Okay? You should be on the same page. And your so-called relationship, your arrangement, will work much better when you have the same goal, the same overall goal. Giving each other pleasure while you do what? Work against the system of racism.
Okay.
Doesn't get any better than that.
All righty. Continuing with our discussion here, 1-877-932-9766 is a number you can call, or you can go to the Gmail at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Or if you would like to watch the show, you can watch the broadcast, the live broadcast of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and myself, yours truly, Mr. Bobby. You can simply go to YouTube, type in the word Talktainment, then hit the space bar and type in the word radio. Scroll down to Talktainment 2 Live on YouTube, and you can also hear us at talktainmentradio.com. That's the ways that you can get in contact with the show. Let's do this. Mr. Fuller, in the middle of page 312, matter of fact, there's two questions, but let's get this one first. The question is, what is the basic counter-racist law of approval and disapproval in matters of sex and race?
What is the basic counter-racist law of approval and disapproval in matters of sex and race?
Yes, sir.
The law is as follows. As long as white supremacy exists, any person who approves of any act of sexual intercourse and or sexual play between a white person and a non-white person should approve of any act of mutual sexual intercourse and or sexual play between any persons. Because what you're doing, you're just throwing out the whole reason for anybody having sex, period. Because you just have, if there are any reasons other than the sexual intercourse itself. I mean, if you're going to say that it's okay for white people and non-white people to have sexual intercourse in the system of white supremacy, that is a political act. It has political ramifications. And if you say, well, it doesn't, and it doesn't matter, I mean, it's a personal thing, and it doesn't have anything to do, with, if it's in the system of white supremacy, so be it. A prison master having sexual intercourse with a prisoner, and it doesn't matter. If you say that doesn't matter, then sexual intercourse between any persons doesn't matter. That's what that entry in this book means. That's the way you should look at it. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. Mix and match any people. And some people really believe, are beginning to believe that, under this new scattersexual way of looking at things, according to the white supremacists, the new sexuality and the new millennia. I mean, where sex can be anything. Okay, if sex can be anything, well, hey. And somehow they squeeze that word in, it doesn't even fit, I notice, in the new sexuality and the new millennia. They say commitment. What do you mean commitment? When you're saying if you're going to have scrambled sex, you just committed to having scrambled sex, meaning sex is anything. I mean, there's no such thing as categories. Male and female, for sure. That's being scrapped. I mean, that's just get, somewhere in the bunch. Because all sexuality and expressions of sexuality are the new expressions of sexuality, non-sexuality. It's all the same. It doesn't matter. So if it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
And if it doesn't matter between white and non-white in a system of white supremacy, then it's logical that it wouldn't matter no kind of way in any circumstance. I mean, in no boundaries at all of any kind. Now stop and think about that. No boundaries of any kind. Because this is what the white supremacists are pushing off on non-white people anyhow.
Okay.
All over the world. There are no boundaries, none, when it comes to sexuality. And if you say that there are any, then you are not for so-called diversity. You are not for anything except some type of sexual discrimination, some type of prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to be demonized now if you say that there are some boundaries in sexuality. When the white supremacists are saying now to the non-white world particularly, there are no boundaries. None.
Mm-hmm.
Zero. Everything is all the same.
Okay.
Everybody get, just whatever your sexual preference is, and that's a very loose term, sexual preference, go for it.
Okay.
Because there are no boundaries at all.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Mr. Fuller. In the system of racism, white supremacy, the prison system, racism, which is white supremacy, the prison system, are you against a non-white male having sex with a non-white female?
A non-white male having sex with a non-white female? No, this is always legit. Yes. No, I'm not against that. And even if I was, the logic says that doesn't make sense. And I got to go with the logic. See, it's not what Neely Fuller's against. There's a lot of things that I'm uncomfortable with that I write. I'm uncomfortable with it. But, it's not about Neely Fuller's comfort.
You're going with the logic.
I go with the logic. Why? Because logic dominates everything in the universe that's supposed to work the way it should work. Okay? People, when you interject your personal feelings into everything, you're messing up logic. Because your personal feelings change every 5 or 10 minutes. You feel one thing and then you feel something else. You're angry, you're tired, you're disgusted, and this is all manufactured. But logic is universal. Fire will burn.
It never changes.
It doesn't. Fire will burn. Water is wet. I mean, water is not the same as fire. It doesn't make any difference how anybody feels about it. Well, I don't feel that fire should burn. Well, good luck with that.
Logic says that if it burned in 1519, 1920, 1941, 2017, it still burns.
Tap into the laws of the universe, because that is the creator of the universe talking to you. You deviate from that, you're all over the place talking about how you feel, and your feelings mess you up. Most people get in trouble on account of their feelings.
Their feelings.
Not on account of logic. Because logic will take you where you need to go. If it's constructive logic.
If it's constructive, okay.
If it's constructive. Because there's two forms of logic, constructive, non-constructive. Pick the one that's constructive, regardless of how you feel.
All righty. All right, coming up next, our topic today, and maybe until May of 2018, it looks like I have it projected, is about sex, the eighth area of human activity, according to Mr. Neely Fuller in the book, which he will be talking about very shortly here, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And we are taking your phone calls now at 1-877-932-9766, which we are getting ready to go to in a moment here. But you can also do this. And I don't know why you'd want to do this, but you can. You can watch us live right now, a live broadcast of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. Now, you won't see Mr. Fuller. You'll see me doing whatever I do, but I'm being directed by two wonderful gentlemen in the back. But anyway, all you have to do is go to YouTube and then type in the word Talktainment. Then hit the space bar and type in the word radio. Scroll down to Talktainment 2 Live on YouTube, and you can also hear us live on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Please like us and subscribe on YouTube. How about that? And hear us live at TalkTainmentRadio.com. Yeah. Radio, the way it should be heard. Before we get the phone call, remember now we're supposed to address the Big 6 and the Big 14, and then it's not the Big 10. It's not about football. It's all in the code book. But anyway, let's take a phone call. Line number 1, your time to do it. Go ahead, please.
You got me, brother?
Hey, brother, man. Go ahead.
Okay. I only talked to Dr. Wilson once, but I expressed to her at that time that I do not think that the real deal here is white supremacy. Now, white supremacy to me is a diversion, although white people do get together and do things. The real truth is greed. It was said many, many moons ago that we have provided for the survival of man against all enemies except his fellow man. Now, before these psychopaths came upon darker people, they killed, enslaved, and took from each other. They went in and they people looked just like them. They took their children. They took their women. They took their animals. The men had to run for their life if they couldn't beat them. And they wasn't black. Then when they came upon us, okay, these people look different than us. We gonna do it to them. And another thing, most of all these world wars was who? It was them fighting each other. So it's greed more than anything. But they do use white and said, hey, you know, we just for white people. Now, this shooting in Texas, I want people to be aware of something. Oh, first, let me say this. The so-called Jews. Let's look at these so-called Jews. Now, the Nazis Hitler supposed to did this to the so-called Jews. But where are Jews today fighting Nazism in this country? We know they have power in Hollywood. We know they have power in the banking industry. Where are they in fighting this Nazism? Why they're not saying anything? Why Israel is not saying anything? Now take the white psychopath who killed us and our women and children. Why isn't he killing Jews? He hates Jews, so every now and then you hear him talk about he don't like the Jews. I ain't seen him going in no Jewish neighborhood killing their children. Why not? But you hate Jews. And we got big Jewish people here with money, billionaires. They ain't putting out nothing talking about this Nazism. Why not? Last thing, this shooting in Texas, shooting in Sandy Hook.
Yeah, go ahead, bro. Hurry.
Okay, be aware, people. These people that have enslaved us, lynched us, castrate us, you get information from them. They are the biggest lying, thieving murders ever walked this planet. When they tell you some 30 white kids killed, 20 white people killed, you take that into consideration. You getting information from them. They blew up the buildings in New York. They blew up the building in Oklahoma. They took the expressway down in Atlanta. These are the most evil people in the world.
All right, my brother.
You about some shooting somewhere, you keep that in your mind.
All right.
Can you believe anything they tell you?
All right.
Anything.
All right, my brother. I got you. Okay. That is affectionately, we call him the extermination man. He is loved worldwide. That's under the GQ. Okay, Mr. Fuller, we're going to discuss the Big 6 and the Big 14, starting on page 312 and 313 of the Revised Expanded Edition. Here are the Big 6. You don't have to answer all Big 6, but just highlight them because I want to get to the 14 also. You wrote in the question form, what are the 6 major reasons for not, that's N-O-T, not starting or continuing an intimate male with female, quote, mateship, end of quote, or, quote, marital arrangement, end of quote.
Okay, what are the 6 major reasons for not starting?
Yes.
Or continuing an intimate male with female mateship or so-called marital arrangement? The answer is for not starting one of these interrelationships.
Yeah, there were 6 of them. Just
right.
Give 3 maybe.
Okay. 1, willful and deliberate sexual intercourse and or sexual play with a white person during the existence of white supremacy. That's one. These are just suggestions.
Yes.
Now, you don't have to take them, all right? But you can think about not taking them if these are reasons that you want to give yourself. Everything is voluntary in a code. Number two, not being willing to tell each other everything, including all of each other's thoughts, desires, likes, dislikes, and every detail of everything that each person has ever done, ever been involved in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, sir.
Number three, production or promotion of sexual diseases, germs. That's a reason for not starting or continuing a sexual relationship with a person. All right? Number four, physical or mental abuse. And while I'm on that one, I really want to say something about that. That's that first time, last time thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to the male beating the female, mostly. All right? Because that's usually the case.
Yes, sir.
That first time should be the very last time. That should be a part of non-white people's code. You might say black code, worldwide as of this moment. In other words, the minute that he connects with his fist or with anything, that violent act against a female, that so-called relationship is over. That's an announcement.
Yes, sir.
There's no makeup for that. There's no such thing as, I lost my temper or nothing like that. No, that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
That does not happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's happening somewhere right now.
Oh, let me
in
ask
a lot of places, in villages and whatnot.
May I ask you a question?
All over the world.
Okay.
And when it happens, that is an announcement that interaction, no more interaction between the two people is really valid.
It's over.
Even if the lady still stays in the same hut or the same house, but she can't go nowhere. The relationship is over because it's not a relationship.
Okay. All right.
That's an announcement that it's over.
Okay.
And that's code. That's hardcore code.
Hardcore code. Okay.
That should be as of this very minute going forward into infinity for the rest of the time that the universe exists. That should be a part of non-white people's code. You don't hit that female. You can fuss, you can argue, you can blow up. All right? Say all kinds of things. All right? And most likely that will happen, occasionally, if not real often, in a messed up world. But when it becomes physical, you hit her in the eye or something like that, or you break her jaw, or you push her over on something, have her fall down. That means that's an announcement. There's no makeup for that. There's no tomorrow in that at all. It means this so-called relationship, this interaction is dead. D-E-A-D, permanently. I mean, there's no breaking up and coming back 5 years later. I mean, this is over. Why? Because it's not supposed to happen ever. Period. Except in what? Direct self-defense. Now, if she comes at him with a butcher knife or an axe or something like that, then that's another matter. That's self-defense. But I'm talking about a black male, for instance, saying, woman, you do what I say do, or you said something I didn't approve of, or I don't like the way you acted, or I don't like something that you did, no matter what it was. You don't settle it by doing violence to her. If you don't want her, that's not the way to express it. You get somebody that you do want, and she can get somebody that she wants. That's how that's resolved. Because when that lick is passed, when that act of brutality happens, that is an announcement that this so-called relationship, which is what it's not as of that moment, this arrangement is dead in the water forever and ever and ever and ever. That's an absolute.
Wow.
Now, that's just number 4 in those 6 things.
Okay.
But physical or mental abuse, the mental abuse, maybe, because that's highly arbitrary. But, that shouldn't go on very long either. I mean, at some point, she should say, well, hey, I'm announcing that it's over. And she can announce that it's over. I know in some so-called villages and societies, the female is not, she doesn't make the determination. Everybody makes decisions for her. That needs to stop. And that includes all that clitoris cutting that goes on in some tribes. I know I might be stepping across some boundaries here, but I don't think so, because there's nothing logical about it. That clitoris was put there by the Creator. And for males to come along and recommend that you take a razor blade and cut on that female as some type of ceremonial something or another, or because he's displeased that she may have a wandering eye, well, if he thinks that way, just don't do it. Just do it out, okay? Leave her alone. Get somebody who you think that won't do what you want done, because it's not supposed to be that type of abuse, which is what it is. Nobody's castrating you, male person. Nobody's cutting on you. So you don't have that thing about cutting somebody else, authorizing it or demanding it for your satisfaction. No, that's abuse, physical abuse and mental abuse of the worst kind. It needs to stop, no matter how long it's being done, down through the thousands of years. Lots of things have been done for thousands of years, like murder. And people continue to do it. But it doesn't mean that you approve of it. And you need to stop doing it right now, this minute. That's no longer a custom. We don't do that anymore. That's over. Over and done with. Why? Because there's nothing logical about it. That's why. There's nothing that the creator of the universe would approve of, logically speaking. Any creator. Why create a clitoris if you're going to cut it out?
Yes, sir.
Bunch of nonsense.
Okay. Okay, we're going to try to get to the Big 14, but we have to do this. Mr. Fuller, this is the time that we allow you to speak to your book here on TalkTimeRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. Okay, take it away.
You can go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of a basic textbook and an additional book called A Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified Word Guide. These are the way that you use words, the way that you don't use words, questions to ask other people when they use these words, because the white supremacists use words as one of their chief tools in manipulating how people think, speak, and act. You're influenced by words or messages in the form of words. That influences what people do, has a heavy influence on what you value, what you think is important, what you think is not important. Advertising is about words. They will say something is important. You should have one of these. If you're going to be somebody, you should have this necklace around your neck. If you don't have this necklace around your neck that I am going to sell to you, you are nobody. You are nothing. Now, how is that done? That's done by somebody saying that it is. Somebody telling you something is important that you didn't think was important. That's all it is. It's words. And the white supremacists are the masters of words among the people of this planet, particularly when it comes to non-white people. So you have to watch the words that they use. And so it's an additional volume. It's all supposed to be the same book, but I wanted it in both of these books to just be one book, both of these volumes. But it turned out to be 2 volumes, much to my misgiving. But the print would have to be too small for most people, and I didn't want the print to be any smaller. Mm-hmm. So I had to make an additional volume. But the basic book is what most people get. But the other book is, I think, essential reading too. And you can get it in a set, or you can just order them individually. But the basic book is a compensatory counter-racist code. And both volumes rather, are addressed to individual persons. And you pick and choose as you go through the segmented pages. Segmented meaning the book is segmented into sections called the 9 areas of activity. The basic book is economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And the volumes or the code books are addressed to individual persons who perceive themselves as being victims of white supremacy. If you don't perceive yourself to be a victim of white supremacy, then the books do not apply to you. Oh. So that's the premise.
Okay.
Go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com.
Okay.
And you can order the book through there.
All righty. Let's see. Let's do this. Anthony McLaughlin, your question that you asked on October the 21st of this year, 2017, will be the first question that we will address on next week's program. So anybody that knows Anthony McLaughlin, let him know that his question will be first up right now according to the current rotation. For that's for next week's program, because we're not going to have time to have Mr. Fuller address it this week. Now, let's get to the Big 14 in our remaining moments. Mr. Fuller, on page 313 of the Revised Expanded Edition, and it's not in the old, the first edition. I don't like to use the word old, which that book is still relevant. The 1984 edition is still relevant, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. But this one, the question that I'm getting ready to ask or recite here is on page 313 of the Revised Expanded Edition. And you wrote in the middle of the page, you said, non-white males. Now, this is what you penned down. Do not engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play for the first time with a non-white female without mutually agreeing to all of the following. Now, you have 14 suggestions here. And on the remaining time that we have on today's program, and we'll probably get into it again on next week, just select a few and go over them while we have the time.
Well, you have to mutually agree to all of the following, or you should. Now, I'm going to remind everybody again, everything in the code book is optional. Everything.
Meaning it's a suggestion.
Yes, these are just suggestions. So if you don't want to take them, you don't have to. It's up to you. But this is all designed to help people to communicate better, okay? To interact with each other as compensatory counter-racist companions. Got that in capital letters.
Yes.
Compensatory counter-racist companions to each other. And that all of your sexual activities be conducted in such a manner as to assist in ending racism and replacing it with justice.
Ooh,
Now, I talked about that before.
Yeah.
Right. But all of your sexual, when you're having sexual intercourse, that's what you're thinking about. This is all in support of ending racism and producing justice.
What?
All right? Everything is political. Your sexual intercourse is political. All right? That's the way you're supposed to look at it, according to counter-racist what? Counter-racist logic. And says to not engage in sexually, this is number 2 now, to not engage in sexual intercourse and or in sexual play with any white person as long as white supremacy exists. Now, you have to agree on that you do not engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play with any white person as long as white supremacy exists. And you can say this openly. I mean, not only to each other, but you can say this on a TV talk show or whatnot. I don't engage in sexual intercourse with white people. And give the reason why. Always give the reason, because you're not trying to shock people or turn people off or have people be controversial. You're not looking for controversy. You're trying to get rid of controversy, all right, by getting what? Understanding. And you say, well, as long as white supremacy exists, you can have it, when the warden is no longer a warden of a prison and the prisoner is no longer a prisoner, then what used to be the warden and what used to be the prisoner of the warden can now have sexual intercourse. That's logical. Why? Because you no longer have that power interaction. One doesn't have power over the other. Everything is mutual, like all functional relationships. All business transactions are supposed to be mutual. Otherwise, they shouldn't exist if they're not mutual.
Okay.
Right.
You know what happens when we hear the music. We'll have to pick this up next week. But TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and radio the way it should be heard. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers and listeners. And we will see you next week. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. Heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.